Hello everyone, welcome back to another one of these guideline labs, and today we're going to be working on assignment 4. So assignment 4, we're still working with functions, but this time they're going to be a bit more advanced. So instead of just doing a simple sum or average or max, we're either going to be using them together to give us something more important, or even some more advanced functions like maybe COUNTIF, SUMIF, some things like that. So let's go ahead and start with exercise 1, the statistical functions. So if you open the sheet statistics, you'll find all of these questions that we want to solve. And as always, there'll be a snapshot of the solution so you can compare your answers. All right, let's go ahead and do this first one. What is the range of starting prices? So go ahead, I have this column. I want to get a range of some values. Usually, what's the range of something? It's going to be the min and the max, right? So lots of ways we could do this. I could first get the min. I'll write it on the side. So I can get the minimum value of the starting prices. All right, it's $1. And I can get the max then. And it'll give me 16,500. If we compare with the screenshot, yeah, it's going from 1 to 16,500. So that's kind of the answer. But how can we put these two values together? So in order to do that, we use something called concatenation. So I can say this value concatenated, so the shift 7, this sort of, we call it the AND symbol, but it also means concatenation. I concatenated with this, I get sort of like this bigger value. Well, the thing is with concatenation, it's going to stick them right together. So this one with this 16,500 right together, they're going to be stuck. So I might want to add between them a space. Okay, so now there's this sort of a separator, but the actual separator that we want is the dash. So go ahead and do that. All right, now it's going from 1 to 16,500, but still, where's the dollar sign? Like here, when I got the min and the max, there was a dollar sign, but where did it go when I was actually getting the value? Well, we're actually just extracting the value itself. The reason here a dollar shows up in the first place is because the type of the cell is accounting. So I could go ahead and change the type to general or to date or something else. The look of it will change. And like the general might show you what you're actually taking from here, you're just taking the value 1, not the actual dollar sign. But no problem. If we want the dollar sign, well, I'll add it as a symbol, not as that dollar sign that fixes ranges or cells, just the symbol dollar. I'll put it before the 06. So I'll get 1. And I'll put a dollar before the 07. I could put it here. And it'll get me the correct answer. Or why do this? I could have also put it here. And no need to add these extra ands. Okay. Still same answer. So there's not one unique solution to these problems. And we went ahead and got the range. And also, like another way to do this real quick, you don't have to put them in other cells. You could have done it right away and gotten them in of the starting prices. Concatenate that with, like, let's do this correctly. So again, first we wanted the dollar, right? Then we wanted the min. Then we wanted a dash. So it's not a bad idea to think like ahead of time what you really want. And then finally the max is the same range. Whoop, not this range. Oh, so that I accidentally pressed the exit button, which made everything go away. So let's do all that real quickly again. Okay, so the min of this whole thing. Then we want a dash. Even if the Excel doesn't show you exactly where your function is, you can always read it here at the very top. So I want the min, then the max of the entire range. Okay, cool. And then I'll just put a dollar sign here, just as before we mentioned. And there you go, same answer as here. But in this one, we wrote them in separate cells, whereas in the other one, right away, we concatenate the functions. Cool. How many item models are displayed in the options? How many items do we have? Well, it could mean two things. Either they want us to count them or to sum how many are available. Now, usually, so how many might usually mean count. And since they're saying like specifically how many item models are there, like how many unique models are there, yes, they want count. I could use count A and give it this range. Since there are not any empty cells, it works fine and we get 40. Or I could have used, again, the count for the numbers and I would have gotten 42. However, if I had used the count for some sort of text, it would have gotten me 0. Because remember, count counts how many numbers, whereas count A just counts how many non-empty cells. How many cars were sold? Again, how many might imply that we want to count, but in this case, it might actually be summing because, hey, how many cars were sold? This question feels like regardless of the what's the model, what I care about is the total. So I can go ahead and say sum if. What's my range? What do I want to have my condition on? Well, I want to check the type and make sure that it's of type car. Okay, so make sure that's the type car. We'll type in that there. Be very careful. Like, I know the question is asking how many cars are sold, but like in the actual Excel, the condition you have to put in is car. We'll see what happens if I actually put cars with an S instead. But first, what's my sum range? It's gonna be the quantity sold. You'll notice actually the sum range is put sort of between brackets. That usually means it's an optional parameter. I might want to add it or not. In this case, I do want to add it. Why? Because the original range is for the condition. Sometimes your range of the condition could be the same sum range. You understand what I just said? Like this range, if it itself was the condition range, we would not have needed an extra one. So here we got 14, and that's the answer. So some people might have gotten 7 if they had just said. So I'll give you an example of what does it mean that your range is the same as your criteria. So here, in a second. So first of all, let's count how many cars we have. Criteria car, we got 7. So in case you got a 7, that means you were counting how many car models you have, not actually how many cars you sold. So we need a sum here. Now, what could it mean if when could these two ranges be the same? Well, if I say sum if, and for example, I want to sum how many items I sold, but I'll only sum them if their number is more than something specific. So for example, bigger than 5. This is just some random condition I came up with. Basically, I'm only gonna sum how many items were sold if at least 6, since I'm saying strictly greater than 5, if at least 6 were sold. So this would be an example where I don't really need to add the sum range again because it happens to be the same range. Okay, but in this case, with what they're asking, there are 2 different ranges. What is the total number of vehicles available that are not for maintenance? What is the total number of vehicles that are available and they're not for maintenance? Well, this makes me feel like they want us to sum the quantity available, because what is the total number? That's like you want the total, you need to sum. And your condition is not for maintenance. So usually it's not a bad idea to break down the problem. Like usually, I think we mentioned this last week, it's usually going to be a condition and what is your condition on? So sum if, I'll sum, or first of all, my condition, the category, it has to be vehicles. In this case, you'll notice it's actually vehicles with an S, not without an S. So we'll write it exactly as it is and make sure that it's spelled correctly. So vehicles, and the sum range is the quantity available. 24, and it's actually 21 because we don't have one condition, we actually have 2 conditions. So the thing I have colored here, vehicles, we already did this condition, but the other condition should be not for maintenance. So I don't want to use some if, I want to use some ifs with an S because I have multiple conditions. But very important, with some if, first you put the range of the criteria, and at the very end you'd put the actual sum range. But with some ifs, it's the reverse. First you put the sum range, which is the quantity available. Then you put your criterias. So this range has a criteria. I want it to be vehicles. And the other one will be not for maintenance, so the type. And it should be not maintenance. Now, usually, let's say I did want it to be maintenance. I could write maintenance right away. And Excel on its own will understand like, oh, you want, it's as if you're writing equals maintenance. It's the same thing. If you write the equal or not, it's as if you mean the same thing. But what about not equal? Well, this is greater than, this is less than, this is greater than or equals. For the not equals, we say this. Like you're doing the less than, then the greater than. This is just a symbol that means you don't want it to be maintenance. And now I actually get 21. Great. What is the average price of, oh, just a second. What would have happened if I put here cars instead of car? Well, I would have gotten 0 because I don't actually have a type that's cars. It's just car. Okay, so this is something I forgot to do a second ago. What is the average price of received? What is the average price received of all sold cars? So I want the average price received of all sold cars. All right. Now I could check, remember, like we have here something called sold yes or not. I could check if it's yes, sold, and if it's a type car, then I'll do the average of the price received. But think about it, the price received, it means the car was already sold. So I don't need to check for this condition whether the car was sold or not. Because if you're doing something that has to do with the price received, definitely the car has to be sold, sold. Actually, I'm not sure. We'll double check this in a second. Let me first assume that it is. So I'll write in average F. My range is gonna be the price received. Oh, my bad. You actually have to first give it the range of what your condition is going to be on. So the type has to be car. And finally, the average range, similar to the sum if, the average range, you put it at the end. We get 6403, and it's here 6403, so the answer seems correct. But what happens if I do this? So focus with me here. So this is car, and this is price received. Or let's say this one. It's a truck, and it doesn't have any price, right? If I change this to car, what's going to happen? Aha. So it's actually important that we add this extra condition. Did you notice what happens? Let me repeat. So I contemplated that we only have one condition, which is cars. I don't need the sold part. That's what I said at the beginning. But if we actually do that, so this was originally truck. I get the correct answer, right? But if I assume that this was actually a car, and notice that it was not sold, so its price received was 0, my answer changed. Very carefully. My answer should stay 64 something. It should stay that. Why? Because I'm only doing the average for price received for the cars that were sold. But if for some reason this was a car and it's not sold, so the price received is 0, you'll notice the average actually got lower. Why? Because I'm taking this into consideration when I actually should not take it into consideration. So be very careful. Even though we got this, even though before I changed this to car, and if I kept it as truck, I got the same answer, but the actual format I wrote is wrong because I'm only checking for car. I'm not checking if it's car sold. The actual correct thing to do would be average ifs. And my average range is the price received. The criteria range is here. Has to be car. And then I have another range. Is it sold? I have to check if it's yes. So right here, yes. All right, I got this answer, and this is the correct one. But notice again the difference. This is actually checking if the car was sold or not. So if I change this to car, this first value goes down because it's not taking into consideration if the car was sold or not, but this does, so this stays the same. It only does the calculation for this one. And again, in case you're wondering why does the value get lower, well, you're assuming we're doing the average of some numbers, right? And I added now an extra number that was 0. Remember that originally we had 7 cars, so we got the sum of the price received and we were dividing it by 6. Yeah. But in this case, what we're actually doing in the red, so this is what the green part is doing. It's doing the average for the 6 cars that were, sorry, it was 7. It was doing the average for the 7 cars that were actually sold, yes. But the red one, what is it doing? Since now we have an extra car, it's getting the sum and then it's dividing it by 8. And one of those cars, this last one that we added, it's actually price received is 0. So the sum never really changed. It's still the same, like because we added a 0, but the division got bigger. So we got a smaller answer. So again, the green part is correct because we are taking care of the sold and the cars. The red is only taking care of the cars. Next, what is the number of furniture items whose price received is less than 20? Easy enough. Equals SUMIF, or we'll see if it's SUMIF or actually COUNTIF. What is the number of furniture item models? So like we want to count the unique furnitures, not all of what were sold. How many furniture items whose price is less than 20? Okay, this seems like COUNTIFs, right? I have 2 conditions. It should be furniture and its price should be less than 20. Okay, so this is the type. We'll put in furniture. The other condition, the price received should be less than 20. Is the answer 4? Yes, it is. Moving on to the next one. So again, this one was nothing. We only had 2 conditions. And again, since they're saying item models, we use the count. Had they said how many, we would have maybe done some and then summed the sold ones, or maybe the quantity available, depending on the question. Price received might tell us, oh, they want the quantity sold. Anyway, now this question: how many items have received price above the average received? Okay, very cool question. So how many item models? Again, how many item models might make us think that we want to count. So let's see, COUNTIF. Have a price received above the average received price. Okay, so my range is the price received. Why? I'll only count the items if their price received was bigger than the average price received. So this is my range. And I'm saying I want it to be bigger than the average price received. Well, how can I get the average price received? I could do it on this side. Okay, like if I write here average, and then give it this range, then close this, and then close this. Because that's how we usually write the condition for COUNTIF, right? We put it between quotations. If I do this, I'm going to get 0. Why? This is not the actual function. I'm literally saying I want it to be bigger than some random letters. This is how Excel understands it. This is not the actual average, just some random letters. Okay, so how could we actually solve this? Well, I could calculate the average on this side, right? I could calculate the average on the side. And it's 2.1 something, and then say, okay, I want it to be bigger, then I'll get this exact number. So 2109. I could do this. I get 11, which is the correct number, but this is not the correct answer. Why? You shouldn't specifically write this. Assume that that the prices change. Like say this one became 9,000 and this became 10,000, etc. Or, right? Or this became, say, just a bunch of zeros. Okay. Notice how the average changed. The average is now 2115. However, you're in the way that you wrote it, you're still checking for 2109. Do you notice what I'm saying? If you specifically wrote 2109, but the average changes now it's 2115, your answer is now wrong because they're saying we want it to be bigger than the average, but what you're doing is you're just checking for the specific number. So let me undo all these numbers that I wrote. Okay. We don't want this. So instead of doing this, the correct way of doing it, you have to concatenate it with the actual average. And again, you could write the average on this side or just write it from scratch here. Average of all of this. Make sure the brackets all are correct. We can now get 11, but it's correct. And now, if I do change the numbers, this will walk with me. It's not a specific number. Cool. Next, what is the percentage of unsold items? Now, a lot of people had problems with this because, hey, we didn't take a function called percentage, or maybe there is and we don't know about it, etc. No problem. Think of it. How do you calculate the percentage of anything? Like if I told you, well, you have 15 red balls, you have 15 blue ones, and you have maybe 10 green ones, and I told you what's the percentage of red balls in here. What you do is, well, you'd get the 15 red balls and you divide it by the total, which in this case is 40, and then you'd multiply it by 100. This is how you get the percentage of something. So the percentage of red balls in on all these group of balls is 37.5. So again, you get the total and you divide the total of red balls, which is 15, and you divide it by the total of everything, which is 40 in this case, and you multiply by 100. But the cool thing here, so we want to do the exact same thing here, but we don't need to multiply by 100 because the type of the cell is already percentage. So it's going to do it for us. So for example, let me change this one from general to percentage. And I divide 15 by 40. This is all I need to do. And on its own, it's going to change it to a percentage. Okay, so let's do that over here. So equals, what's the total of what I care about? The unsold items. So I'll count how many unsold items I have. So count if here, I'll only count you if you're no. Ignore the 600%. So I got 6 unsold basically. So remember, so I gave it 6, it multiplied by 100 on itself and I got 600%. So I have 6 no's. Now I have to divide it by not how many yes I have, but by the total of everything, which is basically how many items I have. I could write count A again, or I could just use the value that I have here that I already did. And we get 15%, which is what they want. Had you divided by how many yeses, you would have gotten a different answer. Last question here. How many computers were sold, laptops and desktops? So how many items were sold, laptops and desktops? Well, you'll notice in the item, you have a desktop computer, you have a laptop somewhere, it's here. This is what you care about. You want it to either be a desktop computer or a laptop. There are other items like computer chairs. This is not a computer, right? This is a computer chair. So be careful. In your condition, you have to specifically write desktop computer, not computer with stars on both sides. That would give you some other stuff. But the important thing is, how can I know how many computers were sold? Like there are two types, desktop computer and desktop. Okay, let's try this one. So I'll say some ifs, right? Like it seems like I have two conditions, right? So I'm gonna sum the quantity available. Again, the quantity sold, sorry. Again, the reason I chose some ifs is because they're saying how many computers were sold, not how many computer models, which might imply, they might want it as count. So they want it as sum. All right, now the criteria range, which is items, and I want it to be desk Now, computer, and then it again. Now I want it to be a laptop. So my conditions are, I wrote them correctly, but if I press enter, I get 0. Why is this? What did I write? If you focus, I'm saying I want it to be a desktop computer and I want it to be a laptop, and that's just not possible. What you're saying is you want a specific cell to be both desktop computer and a laptop at the same time, which is not possible. This is the way that it works. So the way that this sum worked before when we did sum if car, what happened? It went through every type and it checked if it was car. So truck, is it a car? No. Furniture, is it a car? No. Computer, is it a car? No. Car, is it a car? Yes. So it started summing its quantity of sold. Now what's happening here? I'm going through each cell and I'm checking this one. Is it a desktop computer? No. This one. Is it a desktop computer? No. This one. Is it a desktop computer? Yes. Is it also a laptop? No. Do you see what I'm saying? The way we wrote it is as if we're saying we want this specific cell to equal two values at the same time. It to be a desktop computer and a laptop. The first condition is true, but the second is false, so it doesn't get included. Instead, what we want to do is break it down into two different sum ifs. The first one checks if it's a desktop computer. So desktop computer. The other one will check if it's a laptop. So this is how many desktop computers I have. Now let's see how many, not how many I have, how many I sold. Now let's check how many laptops I sold. So here, if it's a laptop, I'll do this. Aha. So 20 plus 34, you'll get 54, which is the correct answer. And as always, you don't have to put them in two different cells. You can do it in just one place. So I'll copy this, write it here. Okay. Then I'll copy this one and I'll add it right here. So at the very end, I'll plus and the other function. Not plus equals, again, you only write an equals once, the equal sign at once at the beginning. So summing if it's a desktop computer, and I'll sum if it's a laptop. Okay, we get 54, which is the correct answer, not 0. All right, next in the summary. So almost done here. Here our focus is going to be on dollar signs. So let's read the question. Exercise 2. Open the sheet summary, insert in cell N11 the corresponding function to calculate the number of distinct items whose category is landscaping. Again, they're saying calculate the number of distinct items. Them saying distinct probably might mean you want to count. And if you read ahead into the second question, when they say calculate the quantity available, like how many of items are available, this might mean we want to use sum. And here we want use count. But the most important part is, if you read the last bit, copy the same function to the remaining column. Copy the same function to the remaining column. The last question, which we'll read in a second, it says copy the same function to fill the remaining cells of the table. So be careful what they want you to do with the function. So here, as we mentioned, how many distinct items I have? Well, I'll count if... so landscaping is in category. Now, if I type in landscaping specifically, I'm always going to get 3. Why? Because every time I'm checking for landscaping. However, here I want to check for office equipment. Here I want to check for vehicles, maintenance, etc. So instead of specifically saying landscaping, I'll reference here this cell M11. If you remember copying, when you go down, it goes down with you. So M11 becomes M12, which is office equipments, which becomes M13, vehicles, etc. So we want M11 to go down with us. However, if we compare the answers, 3, 22, 14, and 1, 3, they're not all there. So this 13 actually has to be 14. Why am I getting the answers wrong? Well, remember, just like M11 is going down with you, the blue part, the range, is going down with you. So focus with me here on this one. The blue part went down. I'm no longer taking vehicles into account. Here it's going down further. Going down further. So we want to fix the blue part. Now I could fix just the rows, and that would have solved my problem. Because I'm only going to copy it down. I don't need to fix the columns. If I fix the column though, that's not a problem. Okay, so here are our answers. Okay. For the other part, as we mentioned, we want to sum the quantity available. So again, this is the category is going to be my condition. I'm going to reference it using, using landscaping. And the sum range, it's not the same range as the criteria, it's going to be the quantity available. If I copy down, I get some answers. If I compare them, 22 for the third one when it should be 24, again, because I didn't fix anything. M11, I do want it to go down, but the blue part and the purple part, I have to fix the the row number, because when I copy down, I don't want them to go down with me. Copy down. So now when I look at this part, it stays where it is. It didn't go down with me. Okay, that's it for question 10 and 11. I only copied down. But now for question 12, which is different, we have to copy for the entire table. So before I wrote a formula here, I copied it down. Wrote a formula here, copied it down. Now what they're saying, you want to write a single formula here and copy it to the rest of the table. The way you do that is you copy down, and then you copy to the right, or you can first copy to the right, then down. Both work. We'll see what that looks like in a second. But insert in cell 23 the function to calculate the total number of car items that were sold at the auction. Total number of cars that were sold. So in this case, I don't need to check if a car was sold. So unlike before, when it turned out I did need to check here if the car was sold. Here, since they want the quantity sold and unsold, I can simply sum this. Because even if I do have some car here instead of truck, the quantity sold is just 0, right? So if you sum it or not, it doesn't make a difference. Adding a 0 to a sum doesn't make a difference. However, adding a 0 to an average, then you increase the count you're dividing by, that does make a difference. So sum if the range is my type, I want it to be car, and I want the sum range to be quantity sold. All right, remember that we need to copy this everywhere. So let's copy it. So first of all, 14 is correct for the first one. But now what happens when we copy down? So I'll copy down this. So to show you how we do it, you copy down, then while it's still highlighting everything, you click again on the small black cross at the bottom right, and you copy it, you drag it to the right. This is how you're supposed to copy it. You don't want to first write a formula here, copy down, then write another formula and copy it down. That's not what they're asking for. They're not asking for what we did before. They're asking, copy this down, then to the right. And as you see, our answers are messed up. Like here, I'm getting 268 when it should be 26274, and over the right, I'm just getting all zeros. So that's multiple problems. Let's first fix this issue here with the column. So I'm copying down. So something's going wrong when I copy down. And it's the same issue as before. You'll notice the blue and the purple, they're going down with me. So I'll fix just the rows. Again, fix the thing that's causing you the issue. I'm copying down and something's going wrong. That means I probably might want to fix the dollar signs. Don't just go ahead and don't fix everything. You'll see why in a moment. Okay, I'll copy down, then to the right. Still zeros on the right, but now this is 274, which is the correct answer, and 104 and 14. Okay, now we can actually see what's going on here. And I can just double check here, like double click, everything seems to be okay. However, when I go here, do you see what the issue is? The purple part is correct. Why? Before, when I was doing the quantity sold, I focused on this range. So the purple part was here, which is the quantity sold, which is correct. When I copy to the right, it became quantity unsold, which is correct. That's the whole purpose of them being next to each other. So when you copy to the right, when first you were working on quantity sold, now you're working on quantity unsold. So this part is correct. But now if you focus on the blue part, that is not correct. Here it was the type, which is what I wanted. I'm checking if it's a car. When I copy to the right, you'll notice it moved to the right with me, kind of like the purple. Now it's checking if it's sold, like if car equals yes. Does this car equal yes? And actually, not even that. There's another issue. First, let's fix the blue part. Because there's another problem. So the blue part should stay at type. So I'll go back to the original formula. So always go back to the original. The blue part should be fixed all over. So this is why I'm saying don't just fix everything, because it turns out for the purple, we only need to fix the rows. So when I copy down, it doesn't get messed up. But the blue part, I also have to fix the column. So when I copy to the right, that doesn't get messed up. So type in enter, copy down, copy to the right, etc. I'm still getting zeros, but if I double click, you'll notice that the blue part is now fixed, which is good. But why am I still getting zeros? Well, notice the red part. Originally, here, car is what I was checking for. But when I copy to the right, similar to the range, car moved to the right. Instead of it being car, now it's this random number 14. And you're checking, is 14 equal to truck? Is 14 equal to furniture, etc.? Which doesn't make sense. So I need to fix M23. What do I need to fix? Do I need to fix the rows or the column? Not the rows, because when I copy down, or that means 23 becomes 24, which is computer. I do want the row number to change, but I don't want the column to change. When I copy to the right, I don't want it to become N20 something, like if you notice that what was happening. So I'll press escape. It became N23. I want it to stay M23, so I'll put $1 here. And for the last time, I'll copy down, then to the right, 18036. Aha, 8036. Now, why am I getting a 1? Oh, I think it's because of this. You remember this was actually a truck, but I changed it to a car. So it's summing the quantity unsold. So this should be actually a truck. Okay, 08036. And if I double click, this is computer, which is correct from the M. The blue part is where it is. The purple part moved to the right, which is correctly, but when I copy down, it stays where it is. So everything now is working fine. So that's how you do it. Or you could have copied to the right, then copied down. That also works. But most importantly is don't just write a formula here and copy it down, or write a formula here and copy it down. This is not what we want. Okay, this is mainly it. I think we'll end it here. And next week, which is actually tomorrow, is when we go back on. So these videos they'll still be up, so you can get sort of like an idea of what the solution actually should be, what your mistakes were, even when we come back on campus. So see you next time. And actually see you tomorrow for the first time. Bye bye.